Hurricane Hanna is strengthening and headed for the Texas coast. Good morning, I'm Mike Naso with this 11 a.m. update on our first hurricane of what is expected to be a very busy and has been, as far as name storms, Atlantic hurricane season, and that is Hurricane Hanna. Let's get straight to it from the National Hurricane Center. As of 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern, the eye of Hurricane Hanna was at 27.1 north, 96.3 west. Winds are up to 80 miles per hour, and it looks like further strengthening until landfall. It's moving west at 7, so that slow motion will not only prolong any potential rainfall or severe weather along the coast, however, it will delay landfall until sometime this evening and keep it over water. And the longer it's over that rich fuel source of the hot Gulf of Mexico, the longer Hanna can strengthen. You can see the track here brings it along the Texas coast later this evening, and then inland, and eventually it'll dissipate over northern Mexico by Monday, and we won't have to deal with it. But right now we do. You can see the tropical storm force winds just impinging on the barrier islands of South Texas. There's the radar imagery of Hurricane Hanna, and you can see a lot of rainfall there. It's finally really starting to organize that eye. There's still some drier air around it, but it's pretty much mixed it out. And it also has a little bit of northerly shear I'll tell you about in a minute. Nevertheless, it's a Category 1 hurricane. And what do we mean by a Category 1 hurricane? With Category 1, winds are 74 to 95 miles an hour. Right now, Hanna's about 80. And that is some damage expected. You can expect something like on the left side of the screen there, trees down, damage to roofs. If you're in mobile homes, it could be more severe. I know there are a lot of mobile homes in that region there, say near Baffin Bay, so you guys want to be on the alert. If you are told to leave in these final hours by local officials, please do so. And the satellite would look something like that on the right with kind of a ragged donut, and that is what we have right now with Hanna. I should also note that on the Saffir-Simpson hurricane wind scale, right now we're at a Category 1 hurricane, so again, that's some damage. Now, some have compared this to the last hurricane that hit Texas 3 years ago in 2017. That was Hurricane Harvey. Harvey was a solid Category 4. That was more of a devastating to catastrophic wind hurricane. So there's a big difference between Hanna and Harvey. Nevertheless, Hanna is a hurricane, and we got to deal with it. Here's a beautiful visible satellite imagery as the sun comes up during the day now on Hurricane Hanna. Look at the eye peeking out right there off the barrier islands of Texas, and it's bubbling, so expect to see it continue to organize, and these ones that strengthen into landfall sometimes take a longer time to unwind, and so we may have to deal with it. I remember back in '03 when I was, 14, 15 years old. Seems like yesterday, Hurricane Claudette was a July hurricane near Port O'Connor, Texas, up here, and it took a long time to spin down, and Hanna may do the same. I should note that if there is a piece of good news, it's where Hanna is going to probably come ashore. It's between Corpus and Brownsville. Back in 1999, in August, we had a hurricane named Brett. It was the second storm of the year, and Brett came out of the Southwest Gulf and exploded into a Category 4 monster. And there were evacuations. It was looking like, oh my goodness, this is going to be horrific. Brett came ashore as a 3, which is very serious major hurricane, but it did it here between Brownsville and Corpus, and there was virtually no damage. There was a sign down. There was almost no sign that a major hurricane hit, because Kennedy County here in South Texas is one of the least populated counties of the entire United States Gulf and Atlantic coast. However, up here near Baffin Bay, you do have areas like Riviera, some nice mobile homes, nice coastal communities, South Padre Island, Port Mansfield. So it's not like there aren't any towns, it's just not as populated as areas of Corpus Christi Bay, Port Aransas, or down near the river. We'll see who gets the brunt of the hurricane, but right now a landfall on Padre Island somewhere seems quite probable. Of course, a hurricane warning is in effect from Port Mansfield to Mesquite Bay, including a storm surge warning from Port Mansfield to Sargent, with the expectation that the landfalling hurricane will have that onshore flow of water. And between Baffin Bay and Mesquite Bay, you're talking 3 to 5 feet. Now, you might think, well, Katrina was almost 30 feet. Yeah, but you got to remember, 5 feet of water is heavy. and you add crashing waves on top of that, you do not want to have that where you live or on top of you. Up near High Island, north of Sargent, you guys can expect near Galveston Bay 1 to 2 feet of water rise, and then further down south near the river, you can expect 1 to 3 feet. But definitely between Port Mansfield and Sargent is where the heaviest surge should occur. There's another look. This is the radar out of Brownsville, and you can see that donut there of our Hurricane Hanna is making its approach. But again, landfall, of course, is the center of the center. So even if it's got a lot of heavy weather over the coastline, it does not officially make landfall until this center crosses the coast, which will be sometime later on Saturday afternoon and evening. I think the earliest we're looking at would be anywhere between 3 and 4 p.m., and probably the latest would be 10 or 11. So let's say somewhere around dinner time, you guys want to be looking at the possible landfall here, or the certain landfall, it looks like, somewhere along the barrier islands here of our Hurricane Hanna. That rainfall is going to be a threat, and the threat of tornadoes, severe weather, flash flooding, that all accompanies a landfalling storm. This is the rainfall estimate from earlier, and you can see 10, 12, 15 inches perhaps, depending on the movement. Right now it's only moving 7 miles an hour, and that's going to prolong the rainfall. And so all the way into northern Mexico, Hanna is going to cause very heavy rain and have the potential for life-threatening flooding, especially in low-lying areas. So it's very serious, and you'll want to stay tuned to that. Now, Hanna does have some northerly shear, and the reason for that is quite simple. The high pressure that's steering it to the north is pushing on it just a little bit. You can see that there, and that's not only why it has a little bit of a flattening on the northern side, but it also has that west-southwest component to its track. It's very strong ridging to the north. Nevertheless, the outflow here on the eastern side and the southern side is beautiful. It's venting itself very nicely and flaring up storms even here off the coastline of Plaquemines Parish in Louisiana. You can see the eye of the hurricane is still offshore there, fanning out in the direction that the upper level conditions are going to force it, which is on off here towards the west-southwest, towards Texas, and then northern Mexico. Still a strengthening hurricane and a threat. So right now, if you're still along the barrier islands there, you guys want to be listening to your local officials. Make sure that if you're in a low-lying area, you're away from the water, because remember, water is what kills in these situations, and we are going to have that water rise. As you can see, it is an organizing hurricane, and Hanna still has time to strengthen. So right now, it's a Category 1 hurricane. You always want to be prepared for at least one category higher, and Hurricane Dolly back July 23rd of 2008, cranked up to 100-mile-an-hour Cat 2. You never know. Hanna still has time over water, and that's always a potential. So between Brownsville to Corpus, Baffin Bay, areas like Kingsville, Raymondsville, you guys got to be on the alert and be taking shelter from any severe weather, including the winds that are on the way with this hurricane. So we're going to deal with this throughout the evening, and I'll be back with frequent updates. Stay tuned to the video update page, Facebook, Twitter, and all the locations as we see this organizing hurricane. Look at that eye. Beautiful. Hurricane Hanna headed for the South Texas coastline. Stay tuned. We'll be back with more.